Hey everyone, Board Game Brody here with Meeple Mountain. I have a brand new copy of Sagani, a Rosenberg game by Eagle Gryphon Games. Sagani is a pattern building, tile placement game where players take turns drafting tiles to add to their personal display to complete the objective on that tile and or completing objectives on any other tiles. The game can be played from 1 to 4 players as it includes a solo mode to play, and it takes 30 minutes to an hour to play through. But let me now tell you 5 things that you need to know about this game. Number 1. Gaining and placing tiles. The meat of the game. All the tiles in the game are shuffled together and placed with the back face up. That's the side showing the spirit with the points. The other side is the front and shows the points in the middle of the tile with either 1 or 4 arrows pointing in different directions. 5 tiles are placed out showing the front with the arrows, and players will take turns choosing one of those tiles to add to their personal display. Tiles need to be added orthogonally adjacent to another tile and never diagonal. Also, when placing the tile, it can be oriented in any position as long as the tile is placed adjacent to another with its sides touching together. The goal with these tiles are to place them to satisfy its arrows, either by placing the tile so the arrows point to the tiles that match that arrow with the tile's base color, or to place the tile so eventually base colors that match the arrow's color are placed in the direction that the arrow is pointing toward. This does not mean that the tiles have to be touching that tile to complete that arrow. But other tiles or even gaps between that tile and the matching tile still will complete the requirement. So again, you will be matching placed tiles and their arrows to point towards other tiles that have a base color that matches the color of those arrows. Once you do that, you will score points, and so this leads me to number 2, the sound discs and the cacophony discs. The sound discs will help you to track which arrows you have completed and which ones still need to be done. Each time a new tile is placed, you will count how many arrows are on that tile. You will then take that number of sound discs of your color and you will place them on the center of the tile. Whenever an arrow points to a tile that has a base color matching the arrow, then you will place one of those sound discs on that tile over the arrow. Whenever all arrows are covered, then you will get to score that tile. You will take all of your sound discs back to place in your own personal supply, and you will flip over the tile showing that it's completed. You will then score the points listed on that tile on the score track. Now, you do have a set number of sound discs to use in the game. So if or when you run out and have them all placed on tiles in your own personal display, then you will need to take the number of cacophony discs, these are the red ones, and you will add them to the newly placed tile. Now, each cacophony disc gets you -2 points per disc, and you will lower your score at the time that you take them. As you can see, it's a bad thing to get these red discs, but when acquired, they increase your supply of discs to use for the rest of the game. But you will mostly want to complete some of your tiles to get discs back to your supply to use for the new tiles so you don't gain any negative points. Overall, the discs track where tiles need to be added in your display, and you should be able to look in front of you and figure out all requirements that you need. Also, in between turns, players will need to keep looking at their own personal displays to make sure that they add the sound discs on top of arrows that have been fulfilled. Tiles might be added not intended to count for a certain tile, and there tends to be a lot of arrows of all types pointing in all different directions, so players should constantly check their display, and they can move any sound discs at any time in the game when it has been accomplished. Number 3. Intermezzo and the flow of the game. 5 tiles are laid out face up at the beginning of the game. Players will take turns drafting from these tiles without additional tiles filling in. Whenever there is 1 tile left, the active player will choose to either take and use that final tile by adding it to their personal display, or instead they can send the last tile to the intermezzo on the top of the scoreboard, and you will then take the top tile in the draw pile. When making this decision, you are weighing between known information on that last tile versus the base color of the other tile and the number of arrows somewhere on that unknown tile. We know that 1-point tiles have 1 arrow, 3-point tiles have 2, 6-point tiles have 3, and 10-point tiles have 4. So players can still have a general idea what to expect on the front side of the tile in the draw pile. After that decision, 5 new tiles are added to the offer display, and the next player continues. Whenever a player adds a 4th tile to the intermezzo area, players will stop and have an opportunity to draft one of those 4 tiles, starting with the player with the least amount of points. Players don't have to draft from the intermezzo at this time, and they can instead decide to pass. In the future, whenever 4 tiles fill the intermezzo area again, the same thing will happen. Number 4. Gaining points and winning the game. As players continue to add tiles to their personal displays, they will also be completing tiles and flipping them over to score points. The end of the game is triggered when a player reaches or exceeds a set number of points depending on the player count. The game will continue until all players have taken the same amount of turns, and at that point, whoever has the most points wins the game. Number 5. Some confusion for players when trying to place tiles and score. So first off, this game requires your brain, but it seems like the spirits are in favor of some players and not with others, maybe playing tricks on their brains. Some players at points in the game were trying to match arrows of one color with an arrow of another color pointing towards each other, and that is not what you're trying to do in this game. Arrows always want to point to tiles with the base color that matches it. So in your brain, you need to think arrow, tile color, or tile color, then same color arrow. Never arrow, arrow. Players tend to score better in the game by scoring tiles and not running out of sound discs. Players can always take tiles to test in their own personal display and returning it when deciding it doesn't work. So testing tiles is highly recommended, but when a player finalizes their tile, it cannot be returned or moved. The game again works on your brain, and planning can potentially benefit you in the game, but it's hard to know what to plan for. Know when playing this game, it's going to involve your brain energy. So get ready to achieve harmony between the natural elements, populating this world with its spirits with your family and friends in Sagani by Eagle Gryphon Games. Again, this is Board Game Brody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around and check out some other board game reviews to see what you might want to get to the table.